Is this trophy-giving fifth grade graduation an example of freedom from religion? Let's bring in Matthew Clark. He's an associate counsel with the American Center for Law and Justice. Matthew, talk to me about this idea of holding this public school ceremony inside of a church chapel, inside of a university chapel, and conducting a prayer. Do the respondents or the claimants in this case, who are humanists, have a case?
Well, here's another example of, in this time it's the American Humanist Association, of angry atheists who are bent on removing every vestige of our religious heritage as a nation from the public life. And this is just another example of that. Here, they're going after two things. One, the location of this graduation ceremony, that it is in a private Christian university setting, that somehow the building itself, the location of that ceremony, is somehow a violation of the Constitution, as if the religiosity of the building itself was somehow toxic to the fifth graders there. And that's absolutely ridiculous. And the court looks at several different things, but primarily, what is the purpose of this particular fifth grade graduation's use of this facility? And it's just to provide extra room, to be able to have some grandparents come to actually view the graduation of their grandchildren. So there's enough room for them, there's comfortable seating, things like that. In no way does this advance or promote religion in this way. And the other thing they're attacking is the ability of an individual student, when they are given a chance to speak as they wish. And if they want to thank a teacher, they can do that. And if they want to thank God for their teacher, they can do that too. The Constitution strictly allows a student to have their First Amendment rights. And the Supreme Court has held that students do not lose their freedom of speech at the schoolhouse gate.
Right.
So I want to push back a little bit on something here. First of all, I want to say I'm sympathetic to parents who want their kids to be able to say prayers during the day. That seems perfectly reasonable. But I want to pose, another thing for us to think about. Suppose this event were going to occur in a Mormon church. I'm Mormon, so I can bring this up. A Mormon church, or perhaps a synagogue or a mosque. Would parents feel uncomfortable sending their kids to their fifth grade graduation in that setting? And if the answer is no, then I would say, you know what, then they're being principled and they really don't think that this is a problem. But if that bothers people, then I would like to ask them to consider this situation and how secular parents might feel about their children going to this chapel on a university campus, on a Christian university campus, and think about how that would make them feel.
Here's my issue with this. When I hear this story, the problem that I see, Matthew said that they were moving there. The reason behind moving this to the chapel was because they needed extra room. And I believe, Matthew, you said, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you said specifically that the reason for needing to move it was because they needed extra room for potentially grandparents to come to this fifth grade graduation? Is that right?
Yes, there was a limit on the number of people that could be there,
okay.
Yes.
That, to me, though, you guys, that seems like an absurd reason to justify needing to move something off of campus, because you can hold these in your gym, in your cafeteria, and by doing that, I think that you can make a strong argument that because it was a conscious decision to move it, that it violates the First Amendment cause of unduly favoring another religion.
Well, let me say, so first in response to Emily, I think there's two separate questions. There's questions of should and can. There are questions of legal and political. Can you have this in a religious arena, in a church or a mosque? And the answer legally, I think, is yes, you can.
Right.
Should you have it in those settings?
That's the question.
Politically, that's the one you're posing to us at the table. Yeah. That is a different calculus.
That's true.
Should you be sensitive to other people's? That's just a different than legal.
Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction to make. You know, there's a lot of things that you shouldn't do, but that you're permitted to do. And I think this is one of those cases that I don't see anything wrong with them deciding to have it inside a church. They're not proselytizing. They're not having a service there. That they're strictly using it just as a venue. And then kids are free to pray if they like. They don't have to if they don't want to. And the fact that they have that ability, that they're free to do that, I think that the Greece ruling clearly shows that the Constitution does not prohibit you from praying if you want to, and you don't have to if you don't. So I don't understand what the big deal is, other than an attack on Christianity.
An establishment of religion would indicate there was some sort of coercion involved.
Right,
you
there's
have to
none
take
of
part
that.
in prayers if people all had to bow down or kneel or do something. fifth graders in this case had to bow down or kneel. I could imagine people might have an objection to that, but just using the space itself seems to go too far. And once again, you see atheists or humanists or whoever the John Does are in this case, just showing such a lack of sensitivity to their fellow Americans.
But I think people are showing them a lack of sensitivity.
Buck, you and I pointed out when the Greece case came up that the idea of coercion, and that would be our new filter, doesn't mean courts will be removed from this process of discerning what is coercive, what is coercion. And I think that brings us back to your point, Emily. I mean, I'm sorry, Ellison.
We're all the same.
And you're both wearing a blue dress. Is we're going to have people parsing exactly what you said, is moving it to this place versus having it at the cafeteria. Is that coercive? Is having these religious iconography coercive? I don't know, and I'm not really comfortable with courts figuring that out for us either.
But I think for me the issue that I have is with the venue and where I can say, okay, are they unduly favoring another religion? Because why choose? They're going off campus for this. Why make the conscious decision to choose for it to be in a Christian church?
That's their prerogative.
Is it, though, from a public school?
Yes, that's their prerogative.
See, that's where I'm disagreeing. I think legally that it violates the First Amendment by doing that, because if you needed more space, use the high school gym. I'm sure they'd let you use it for taxpayers.
Matt, what do you say?
Well, the Supreme Court is actually considering a very similar case to this and deciding whether it's going to take it, and that's the Elmsburg School District. And the court actually held that case pending the decision in Town of Greece. And so it's actually an open matter that the Supreme Court is looking at right now. But to say that the building itself is somehow a problem, that because someone might see a cross or something like that as they're coming in, all of the material, all Christian material was going to be removed from the chapel itself, so there wasn't going to be handing out of flyers or anything like that. It was just going to be a place where they could sit, hold their graduation ceremony, fit in enough people. They had grown, so they needed a larger space.
Yeah, and being offended is not a violation of the Constitution. You know, people need to get over themselves.
I think if they removed all of the religious adornments from it, I think that changes the situation. If it's just an